Folks, welcome to another Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies. See it or skip it. We just got out of I'm Still Here, a Brazilian film about this woman. Her name is
Eunice Pavia.
Thank you. Eunice Pavia, and how she, during the first third of the Brazilian military dictatorship in the early 70s, the ramifications of her husband being disappeared by that dictatorship and how she dealt with that, the damage to her family and how she decided to move forward.
Yeah.
Jim, see it or skip it?
Absolutely see it. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Remarkable film.
Yeah.
Well worth it. And if you still can, check it out in the theater. It will reward that kind of viewing.
Yeah.
Jim, you were talking about that and how it builds and how it adds layers. Without getting into spoilers,
Sure.
We will do a deep dive next week, but without getting into spoilers, can you kind of talk about that a bit more?
Yeah, I mean they're well documented events, but basically, something happens to the family, and it's what happens after that. There's never any histrionics to this. It's how they cope. They cope in a very sort of, I don't know if quiet is the right word, but it's less away from the drama, the obvious drama of a situation like this. And it just sort of does focus on how they each deal with things, and even how the mother talks to the kids
children
in a different way, and that kind of thing too. So it's unlike any movie I'd seen. The opportunities for histrionics here are huge, right?
Absolutely.
But they don't take the bait, and it's sort of a better movie for it, I think.
Yeah, it could have certainly been a lot more melodramatic.
Yeah.
I could imagine in not an American's hands, more American Network. Imagine a movie of the week.
Yeah.
Even something made for cable would have been a lot more in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Something else you'd mentioned as we were getting out of the theater, it really is, we meet the husband, we know him for a time, we get to know this family for a time.
Yeah.
There are 5 kids, all kinds of ages. One is actually sent to England with family friends early on, doesn't come back until later in the film. What did you think of that cast? Because it's maybe not small children, 4 years old, but
I was
between 5 and 10 into teenage.
Yeah. I think they handled the family really well. I was joking that I had FOMO for a big Brazilian family afterwards. I have FOMO for Brazilian souffle. They literally mentioned souffle 5 or like a half dozen times during the movie. The kids were great. They were wonderfully cast. There was none of that sort of, the smart alecky young boy. None of that precocious. It felt very organic. They're playing football, their kind of football out on the street in bare feet on concrete. It's a lot about their lifestyle without being braggy about it, without being aspirational. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
It's not at all aspirational, but they have a house on the beach and these great lunch parties and
they're definitely
that kind of thing.
upper middle class.
They are, but it's never, you're not cool enough to join us. It looks like something that you would want to go to.
Or as it plays out, you don't feel what may be, again, in a more, let's say, a more American treatment, more, oh my goodness, now the economic circumstances of the family have fundamentally shifted. What is this woman going to do? How will she overcome?
Yeah.
We don't get that hard hit.
No. Even they have a maid. They eventually let her go. Minor spoiler, and that's not really handled like you know. But yeah, in terms of the family, as you're asking, the kids are wonderfully cast. They each have their own kind of warmth, and they do. It's a quiet enough film that I think, you know, I'd have to go back, but I think almost every kid gets their time with the camera, whether it's one trying on the dad's shirts or another one having a confidential conversation with the mother, is that they all get a chance to breathe. And that's a beautiful thing about this movie.
I will say this, if you do see it, if you can see it in the theater, if you can't see it in the theater, maybe turn the lights down. Put the phone on Do Not Disturb, turn it over, or don't even have it within arm's reach.
Throw the clock away.
Just watch the movie. Let it happen to you, because it really is, it layers, it builds to a point where at the end, when it does end, I was teary-eyed, and maybe not in a cathartic sense, but I was teary-eyed, and I was really glad for a kind of a come down the way they go through pictures of the real pictures of these people. Pictures is another thing, like they're always playing with pictures.
The daughter has a film camera. They use that a lot, you know.
All right. Well, on that note, did you want to?
I was just
going
to
to
say, in terms too, it was really nice to see something from Brazil. I was trying to think of the movies that I've seen from Brazil, and I can say City of God, Bus 174.
Yeah.
The other one I had was Blame It on Rio, but nobody needs to see that. And it wasn't a Brazilian production, but I'm just kidding. But so I can probably count on the fingers of one hand how many Brazilian movies I've seen, and it felt different. You know, there were faces I didn't know, there were actors I didn't know their tricks,
and again, like you say, they don't know the tricks,
and it's wonderful.
So much easier to fall into it.
Yeah.
I will say this, speaking of representation, I mean, none of these, I think we see a couple of the kids'
friends
that are black.
Yeah.
Like, and this is, you know, Brazil is another part of Western, the slave trade.
Yeah.
The assault on First Nations people within there, indigenous, if you're not familiar with that term, you know, so this is not, I want to say, no, this is all super revolutionary or anything. This was they were upper middle class. You know, certainly doesn't, they certainly weren't doing evil trying to help people against a military dictatorship, but, you know, it wasn't exactly, this isn't revolutionary either. You know. But anyway, folks, thanks so much for checking out this one. I know it's gone a little longer, damn near a podcast, but we will see you. We'll see you soon. We still got other Oscar-nominated films before the actual show. All right,
coming up.
Good night, everybody, or whenever you're watching this. I don't know.
Soon after its release in Brazil in November, the film was the target of an unsuccessful boycott by the Brazilian far right, which denies the regime was a dictatorship. Nobody died.
You know what? Probably ran away from his wife.
Yes. They're all the same, those guys.
Yeah. You know, Turks denying the Armenian genocide. Israelis, we're not ethnically cleansing anyone.
Yeah.
Canadian senators, residential schools were a great idea and they did a lot of good.
Yeah.